So the best version of adaptability for me is always being ready as that pinch hitter. And for me, my adaptability pairs with my communication very well. So it is always kind of waiting. I'm one of those people where if you had to give a speech tomorrow and you wanted to call somebody to fill in this gap, you could call me. And instead of being nervous, I would jump at the chance.
Hello, welcome to season 3 of Coach to Coach Secrets of the Strengths. Today, we are talking about adaptability. I have with me Kevin and Jamal, and they are going to talk to us about this particular strength as the in-house experts. Gentlemen, welcome to the show today.
Thanks very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Kevin, we're coming to you first. We want you we want to know your top 5, and we want you to tell us specifically about your strengths journey. When did you learn about it? And if you want to throw in there your adaptability strengths, since that's the star of the show today, go ahead and give us a little background there.
Sure. So I've been working with strengths since 2017, and that's when I got certified as a strengths coach. My top 5 are empathy, relator, maximizer. I have adaptability number 4, and then positivity number 5 to round out my top 5. And for me, adaptability it's really that go with the flow perspective on life. Either whatever changes that I might make or whatever changes life throws at me, I pretty much just navigate those.
All right, so adaptability fits in there with empathy, relator, maximizer, and you said positivity, right?
Correct.
Wow, that is a lot of blue, my man.
It is.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
All about the people.
You certainly are. You certainly are. So I appreciate that you started with the go with the flow, because that's going to be, I think, a big theme of this particular strength as we go. Jamal, how about you?
Absolutely. So my top 5 are adaptability, maximizer, communication, activator, and ideation. So I am heavy influencing, 6 out of 10 in my influencing. Positivity is number 6, right behind you there, Kevin. And I first started my strengths journey in 2013 was when I first took the assessment and really fell in love with the way this presents how you can go about, approaching work and approaching life. I was always one of those people with my maximizer speaking that naturally wanted to know how I can be better at the things that I'm already good at. So strengths really was speaking my language before I knew that I had the language for it.
Okay, very cool. So 6 of 10 influence. Kevin, how many in your top 10 are relationship building?
I think 9 out of 11 I would count in my dominant.
Okay. So 9 of 11 are, so you have all of them.
Sorry, 9 out of 11 relationship building themes I count in my dominant bracket.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's all of them.
Yeah.
Harmony is a little bit lower and includer is a little bit lower. But yeah, a lot of blue, like you said.
That's awesome. All right, Kevin. That's really cool. Okay, so I am going to ask just a number of questions about how you distinguish the strength of adaptability. And then I'm going to ask you to get into like how it power pairs and maybe even where it has contrarian partnership inside of you. So a strength that wants to do something else other than what adaptability might want to do. So just some variance in the conversation. We'll talk a little bit about just how you coach with that, because adaptability is a super cool strength because of that ability to adjust and go and stay calm under pressure. Some of those things that I happen to know about this particular strength. And so, Jamal, we'll start with you. So adaptability by itself or with partners, when you think of the best version of it for you, what comes to mind?
So the best version of adaptability for me is always being ready as that pinch hitter. And for me, my adaptability pairs with my communication very well. So it is always kind of waiting. I'm one of those people where if you had to give a speech tomorrow and you wanted to call somebody to fill in this gap, you could call me. And instead of being nervous, I would jump at the chance. I'm one of those strange people who never met a crowd I didn't like. And if you give me a last minute assignment, I will jump in there and make it happen. I actually have an interesting personal story that this showed up in my professional life prior to my coaching experience, where I had gone, this was before the organization I ended up taking Clifton Strengths with. I was my first day working with them. Technically, I started the day after, but we had a large partner event. One of our corporate partners, it was in the fundraising space. So this was like a major funder, a place where we really had to be present. And it was a kickoff party for us launching this new initiative. And the day before I started, I came to this kickoff party as a guest who would eventually be an employee. And our executive director says, and Jamal's going to be leading this new thing for us. Come on stage and say a few words to the people. I was like, okay, it's time to jump in and be me. And that was one of the most interesting moments where it came to play in real life. And then after about a year later with that organization, I took strength for the first time and had a chance to really understand that this has naturally been me. So my role in partnerships and pitching and fundraising and doing these things really sometimes ad hoc and last minute really just fit me to a T.
I love it. Very cool. So that pinch hitter way of thinking, so your adaptability gives you a little bit of an advantage there, because if you're called on, like, all right, I just adjust and I go with it. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm always ready and waiting for some new opportunity, some new moment to just be fully present, get on a stage or make a new connection. If there's a last minute event to go to, I have Woo number 9 too. So it's in my dominant. So if you give me an opportunity to be around people in any way, communicate in any way, connect, or if you just need a last minute brainstorming session before we meet with a client just to make sure we're on the right track, I love that. But that's how it pairs with my ideation. So any of those things where you can call up my strengths, or if we have, hey, we need a quick final review of this asset before it goes to the client, I'm going to dial up my maximizer last minute, make sure that what we're putting in front of our client is going to be the best thing. And that served me well over my years in marketing and this other roles as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Kevin.
Yeah, Jamal, that sounds very much like how my adaptability shows up. And I think what resonates with me is if I have to speak, and I'm a professor as my full-time job, but long before that, actually, if I think back to how can I identify that I have adaptability even before I knew that I had adaptability? When I was in high school, I was on the debate team, and I would be able to respond to arguments that the opponent threw out. There's not a lot of time to prepare, but something that both my partner and I recognize, as well as our coaches, is that I was a little bit more settled into, okay, I just heard this, therefore I'm going to say this. Whereas my partner needed to read the brief and, rely more on preparation, of like a day or a week before, as opposed to go now. So that kind of in the moment responsiveness, especially in a public speaking context, that's how my adaptability shows up. I think for me, in a classroom, I can have the best laid plans and students can wreck that in a matter of 5 minutes. And, I can stay in the front of the room if that's where I happen to be teaching and, kind of go with it, make sure that what I want to present in terms of material, is still part of the conversation, but also weave in and integrate all of their curiosities and their questions, without like getting flustered or make it seem like, oh, this is really not what I wanted to talk about. We just kind of go with it. So it definitely works in that way as well.
So continuing on, Kevin, when you think about adaptability and partnering with your other strengths, so what's your Batman and Robin version of your adaptability, or I've heard it said your peanut butter and jelly version, where it just seems to fit together with other strengths that you have?
So adaptability number 4 and positivity number 5, I think, are what keeps me, out of the high stress zones. Just kind of, all right, this is life and I'm going to make the best of it. Think back to, again, long before I knew what my strengths were, or, even what strengths were. I was a competitive swimmer. That was my sport growing up. And I remember one swim meet in particular in which I was so close to making a junior nationals cut, and like the whole team came out on deck and cheered for me in this one race, and I didn't end up making the time. I was like, okay, well, that's okay. I'll try again, next season. And I remember both my parents as well as a lot of my teammates saying, well, Kevin's not that disappointed about that. It's kind of surprising. But that to me is the adaptability plus positivity. Like, okay, I'm just going to go with it and it's going to work out. And eventually it did. That's how I see a strength partnership amongst my top 5 really strongly. That, if life doesn't work out quite the way I wanted it to, I'll just go with it.
That's great. That's great. You're going to live longer than most of us with that attitude.
Oh,
So just
I'll take that too.
yeah, I'm over here going, how do I borrow that, Kevin? Because I would have been destroyed had I lost that race and not
Wow.
made the time, because I have high
You know-
competition. So I would have been like,
So yeah.
A whole year I gotta wait all the work I did. But I have seen people with those two strengths, and you're right. You have this innate or uncanny ability to just such high resilience, such high bounce back. And I can see
I
where the
love
two of
that.
those work. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it keeps the stress low and it helps me navigate change. And there's always change. So
Yeah. Excellent change management combination there, because it's definitely change is inevitable, right? Wins,
exactly.
losses, difficulty. All right. Jamal, what's yours? What's your power partner there with adaptability?
Oh, that's a great question. I think my power partner, I mentioned communication, but I have adaptability, maximizer communication, activator ideation. So really that being that person who's the go-to pitch person in a pinch that layers in with my adaptability, my communication, and my activator. Like, let's ready, set, go. Short period of time. Let's get it started. Let's kick it off. Let's get into action immediately. So those really pair well together. It's interesting. I love Kevin's example around athletics because I find that adaptability did help me. I was a competitive track athlete, ran track in college. And the same thing, it lets you shake off one bad performance and gear up for the next bad performance. Where it was different for me is my maximizer would have me go back afterwards and say, where wasn't I perfect in that performance after I finished for the day? But it would let me shake it off for the first event and let me get ready for the next one. And then afterwards, my after action report, like, where did I miss here, 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 and here? Let's get better each time.
That's great. All right. So a track athlete, a swimming athlete with very different ways that you both had to, those are two sports that require such individual motivation, because though you're on a larger team, you're very much alone most of the time, unless you're in a relay, of course. But most of that sport, 80% of it, 90% is solo performance, right?
Absolutely. And even the relays are just a collection of individual efforts. There's no in sync besides I do my job and then I give it to you to do your job. There's no connection there. So it's all individual effort and individual performance.
Fascinating. Okay. Very cool. All right, guys. So when we think about your strengths as they might contrast with adaptability and how it might impact you, because I have known people with this strength that secretly they like the shakeup. They enjoy the change of scenery. They get bored with too much routine, and they can find that sometimes they disrupt their own routine just to adapt to it. And so I'm curious, because there are strengths that actually crave some predictability, crave some expectation, and adaptability. Of course you can, but curious where you feel that contrast. So I want you to go first.
So I don't necessarily feel as much conflict within my strengths as I do with my environment where my strengths reside. Because oftentimes in the professional world, we have roles that we work in and they are very defined. You do this role, it should look like this every day. There may be 10% variance. And for me, if I'm doing mostly the same thing every day, I get bored very easily. So I'm one of those where it looks like I'm a journeyman when you look through like my resume, but it's very much, there's a through line of the new thing I wanted to learn, compete against, accomplish, and, go after. But after, a few months of routine and getting to a place where I am demonstrating mastery, I want to know what's next. And it did really led me to be thoughtful about how I approach roles, what I'm looking for, because if I'm looking for something that's going to be predictable, and for me, it would feel a bit more mundane, I would just say no up front. I would, on the dark side of that, you do tend to go for the more exciting role that may or may not be the most stable role. So you're probably going to be drawn more to like a startup where things are going to be a little bit more haphazard and changing versus going someplace that's a, traditional accounting firm or something. So in my world, in my career especially, it's been much more of a driver of what level of risk and risk tolerance I can, actively pursue in my career.
Coaches and service-based business builders want to 10x your impact and income? Join the Strengthspreneur Mastermind, led by Brent O'Bandon, MCC, author of the Strengthspreneur 10x Workbook, and the world's first Gallup-certified strengths coach. This powerhouse group gives you personalized coaching, peer support, and proven tools to launch and scale your unique strengths. We meet 2 times a month. Come sharpen your strategy, boost confidence, and grow smarter, not harder. Visit podcast.34strong.com to thrive as a strengthspreneur. Again, visit podcast.34strong.com, join Brent O'Bannon, and thrive as a strengthpreneur. Okay, so I love what you just said, because with the influencing strengths connected to adaptability, I'm hearing that high risk threshold. And that's unique, because that startup environment, I do agree with you. The startup environment adaptability does very well, because you're guaranteed changing scenery all the time. It drives team members nuts how much you have to be nimble. You have to adjust with the market, because you're not yet proven in your theory, and if it doesn't make money, investors aren't happy. So you're constantly having to adjust and change. So fascinating. All right, so Kevin, I want to hear the contrast with what you're thinking there.
Yeah, and interesting. So Jamal, you said you have adaptability and then maximizer.
Yes,
Very
adaptability
alluded to this. So
maximizer.
I have maximizer 3 and adaptability 4, and that's a tension point between my strengths. So Brandon, I hope I'm in some way offering a response to your question. With me, adaptability and maximizer.
Don't worry if you're not. We'll adapt. You're good.
Okay, exactly. Yeah. For me, my adaptability and maximizer can get in each other's way sometimes, because I'll see, like, okay, there's possibilities out here. Which one is the best? And then I can go through mentally a bunch of different choices and kind of pivot real fast with my adaptability. Maximizer would allow me to go through a bunch of different possibilities. Adaptability allows me to shift rapidly between them. It can be hard for other people to follow me, but very quickly in my own mind, I'm doing these mental gymnastics to think about, all right, what's the best? And, it doesn't matter which one's the best, because I can do it with this. My adaptability will take me from point A to point B. And then throw in my positivity too. It's like, I can do all of this. It's all going to work out. So maybe the trio combination, but I have definitely found that the maximizer and adaptability can get in each other's way by, maybe not settling on a choice and always thinking about, like, oh, okay, well, did I make the best choice? Whether that's for me or for a group of people, and, kind of questioning that and thinking, well, maybe we can do something even better than what we currently have.
So with both of you sharing that, I'm curious, Jamal, do you relate to that side of his maximizer possibly getting in the way?
I do relate to maximizer getting in the way with adaptability, but in a slightly different way. I think for me, it's the adaptability makes me want to take on those new challenges, and maximizer makes me unreasonably expect excellence when I've had 33 seconds to prepare. so I hold myself to an impossibly high standard sometimes, where it's just, hey, we're jumping in last minute, but you've got to be the greatest ever, or else. And the or else is only on me. No one else cares. That expectation is not on anyone else. But I jump into something last minute and expect it to be perfect and flawless. So it's interesting. There's kind of it's a bit cyclical, because I do have a chance where I go back and say, well, if it wasn't flawless this time, this is what I would adjust, and this is what I would do, and this is how I would flex and change next time.
Have you both taken strengths more than once? Nope, Kevin, you're one time. One and done. Kevin is ride or die. That results a good one. By you.
That's my high maximizer. I took it once and I was like, yep, that's excellence right there. It's perfect. Done. Don't need to do it again. I'm great.
This is amazing. So most people that I have on, so many of them are like, oh yeah, I've taken it 4 times, or I've taken it so many. And I love that my adaptables are like, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I have no plans to taking it again.
Yeah, dude, that's great. I love that. So with both of your adaptables, I want to hear how you rub others. So your awareness of how this strength comes off, and sometimes it maybe it's just amazing, other times it's I gotta adjust because they're not tracking with this with me. I need to explain it. I need to tell them, hey, this is just how I'm wired. This is my strength of adaptability. So Kevin, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first on this one. One of the things I learned in working with strengths, and this wasn't necessarily during my certification, but somebody along the way told me, or here's a question to kind of identify your strengths. What did you get in trouble for growing up? Okay, so I didn't get in trouble for anything related to my adaptability, but I often got criticized by my family for changing my mind, like on a dime. I think the phrase my parents use is, wow, you just kind of flap in the wind. Like the wind blows one way and you're going with it, and then it goes the other way and you're going with it. And I think, Brandon, it speaks to what you're talking about in terms of like it's hard for other people to follow you. So I think, especially as I learned to teach, I had to really lay out like a roadmap for my students because the path that my mind was going down wasn't necessarily one that they could follow, especially if it like wasn't on the slides. If I'm just like talking free form, it's almost like the danger, give me a mic and you'll wish that you never had, because I'll just keep going with it. What I've had to learn to do is help people follow along what is going on in my own head, because otherwise they're just not going to be able to follow it. I think by the same token, one of my TAs once joked with me because he knew about my adaptability and the way it kind of well, rubbed up against him was like, if we're walking anywhere on campus, I need to keep real close to you. Otherwise, you'll take a hard left and you'll be gone talking to somebody else, and I won't know where you've gone. So kind of in that same way, whether it's like people following my own thought processes or actually following me physically from point A to point B, kind of need to make sure that they're with me, and not, lost because I haven't told them exactly what's going on in my own head.
I love that family example there. I'm a middle child only boy. So in that context, it's definitely served me well to just be flexible when I probably am not the most opinionated person in my household. So that's been helpful from that side of it. On the dark side of it, professionally, deadlines. I am one of those people who doesn't naturally break anything down into milestones. I will save a fairly complex project until we get close to the wire and create artificial pressure so that I then focus in and have to run up against this deadline. And for those people who are in very, just iterative, they do things with an iterative process, or they just have a more I would say, well-paced way of doing things, it rubs up against them all the time. I won't miss the deadline. The final product will be ready and it will be good. My maximizer makes sure it is. But God, I will drive folks crazy with like the draft one may not be there because I'm still working through part of it in my head, and draft two is getting there. And once I deliver like the first draft, it's basically a final draft, but it's always near the deadline and there's like the crunch of artificial pressure. And I can't tell if that's a nature or nurture component because, you want the pressure that you used to feel as an athlete or, all of these things layering into one. But that has been one of the things where I will save too much oftentimes for last minute. And I tend to seek out people who are natural project managers to help me put some deadlines in place that make things more manageable so that I can partner with them to combat my nature. Because if it's just left to me, I'll wait till, the day before and we're going to make it happen. I was like a cram student. I was we're going to write the paper the night before in college student. So in my life, and even with my wife is a natural project manager, all of the people that I've surrounded myself with personally and professionally, they help me bring that balance and a little bit of structure that I can do my sprints within.
That's great.
Can I,
Kevin,
can I
go ahead.
I love the partnering with a project manager piece, but I'm wondering if this metaphor speaks to you, Jamal, because with me and my adaptability, I definitely feel like I'm the kind of person who will build the plane as he's flying it. And what you said about planning or like milestones to a larger project is not really how you think about things. In just in the context of the question about like how does this strength rub against people the wrong way, I have found that with working with people who are really good planners, like my resistance or reluctance maybe to plan or just to dive in without having a plan really does not sit well with them. If people need to know exactly where we're going or, have a roadmap beforehand, and I'm just like, well, we'll figure it out along the way. Like that doesn't really work with some people.
Yes. So to clarify, it's a select few who fully understand me and can partner with me in a way, knowing how I operate. But mine is a little more, and it's different in that space because of my adaptability also pairs with my ideation. So there is a line from the movie Inception that I don't know if we can reference in a podcast, but why not? Where they talk about in the dream world, your mind simultaneously creates and perceives at the same time. So it's the adapting and thinking in the moment where you're constantly like iterating in your head before something comes out. And it's an interesting approach. So I find that putting me in that creative space is really really fun, helpful space. So, but those project managers who really, really know me can give me some guardrails and say, hey, we got to have this one by this date.
Very cool. All right. So when we think about you as a leader, tell me how your adaptability makes you an excellent leader. So we talked about the challenges, and we know that adaptability does give some, we'll call it unfair advantages to you, because every one of our strengths gives us an unfair advantage if it's leveraged appropriately. And so when you think about your ability to lead others, so Kevin, you're leading classrooms full of students, and Jamal in your business life and your professional life, this is, and then, whatever happens in home and whatever happens with your peer group and your position within your broader family. I'm curious how this helps you excel in leadership.
Yeah, I'll take that one. For me, adaptability really helps me as a leader by allowing me to be fully present and respond in the moment. So if I'm in a discussion and if I'm in a one-to-one, or if I'm making an observation or working on something with someone, I am fully there, fully present, and just trying to understand them, what's happening, their challenge. And the conversation is going to be very dynamic because I'm listening with intent, listening to understand what their challenges are, coming up with responses and potential solutions in real time with my ideation in concert. So that shows up that way, both in my coaching sessions, but also like in my just teams when I'm working with folks and leading them. It's something that I feel has been really helpful in how I build relationships, is being fully present. I heard someone say that sometimes people with adaptability and in the right way, when you're talking to them, it feels like you're the only person in the room. So if you're fully present, I'm just listening to try to understand all the nuances of what you're delivering so that I can know how to respond, how to help you, how to support you and get you to that next level.
I think for me, adaptability helps me in my leadership by helping me manage my stress levels. I can imagine that if I didn't have adaptability and there's all this change going on, and whether that's in a classroom or say just at my university as an organization, there's a fair amount of stress that we all have to endure. For me, adaptability means, okay, one, change doesn't rattle me very much. And maybe one of the reasons it doesn't is because I feel with adaptability, I always have a backup plan going on. There's a fallback. Okay, this isn't going to work. And maybe I'm making it up in the moment, but okay, I thought we were going to do this. We're not. So we're going to do this instead. And so in terms of leadership, I have been told, and I think I agree that I embody this. I don't project a lot of stress outwardly. And I think that helps people who might be in my classes or might be working with me to not pick up on or not, feel any stress that I might be exuding. It either dissipates or I'm able to manage it in some other way. I think that has definitely helped my leadership.
You know how we start our coaching business on a high, only to get absolutely overwhelmed by the business side of things? We're suddenly supposed to be a full-time salesperson, marketing funnel maker, email marketing expert, social media manager, customer service rep, and tech expert all in one. Yeah, overwhelmed. Well, Lisa Cummings, our strengths coach friend, created a membership that gives you an insane member vault that will blow your mind. All the tools, systems, and templates to save you time and money. It's the actual assets Lisa used at Lead Through Strengths to build a successful strengths coaching business. All the assets are yours to customize and make your very own. She even gives you 2 years worth of emails you can use to serve your customers. So check it out at podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths. Again, podcast.34strong.com, Lead Through Strengths from Lisa Cummings. That's great. So in thinking about you both in terms of your knowledge as strengths experts, and all of the strengths have polar opposites to them. And so in your experience working with people, when you're aware of their strengths or you're aware of the patterns enough to know what strength they have, what are the strengths that come in very opposite to you? The ones that you mentioned a career space in project management. So those are complementary, and we'll call these complementary and contrarian because sometimes they're so contrarian that it does require extra effort to complement because they're just so far apart, so spectrumed, very, very, very opposing in that nature. And so as you think about this particular strength, what are some ones that you've noticed that I have to give a little more work on this to really get the best compliment out of this?
I think what comes to mind first, if I may name two, uh, one is deliberative, and that's somewhere in my supporting. I don't know exactly where, but conceptually to me, adaptability and deliberative seem somewhat in opposition to one another. My just like, okay, anything goes, whatever, as opposed to let's be very intentional about what we're planning or thinking about and, kind of execute on. I think the other one, though, is focus. And whereas my mind can jump from, project to project or activity to activity really quickly, I think focus, where you get lost for hours and look up and realize, oh, wow, 6 hours have just gone by. I had no concept of the passage of time. That would also be something like if I were working with somebody who had high focus and they weren't kind of tracking my, hopping around from idea to idea, I think that would, require some, backing up for me to be able to meet them where they are. I'll offer those two.
You stole my two.
Oops.
Those are really, really good ones. I found that working with folks with high deliberative, it's if I can set clear expectations about how I will be flexible within the constructs that they have created and that exist, it creates a little bit more comfort for folks who are very, this is the process, this is the way we have to do it. So those deliberative folks, if I understand like, hey, this is where I expect to vary within this, but we're still going to meet this milestone and this one and this one and this one. And these are our constant variables here, our constants here versus our variables, giving them that sense of clarity is very helpful. Also, folks, just knowing, sometimes high strategic, it's not so much that it is opposite, but it's complementary. So folks with strategic, I give them that space to just come back with a plan. And I know that within that plan, this is here how I can plug in and how we can be nimble and flexible. So they can see the multiple pathways. And within those pathways, I'm ready for something to pop out of the woods in those pathways.
My fourth child, when she took strengths, I was sitting with her because she was right at 14. And I remember going through the questions, and one of them came up about going with the flow or you don't plan. And she looks over at me, she goes, "Oh," and she goes all the way to the other side. And as she's going through the test, and every single one that I knew would connect to adaptability was like, oh, like hard to the other way. And so when she gets her results, adaptability was number 34 and number 1 was discipline. And what made it so interesting in the context of our family is that her older siblings, the 2 oldest in the family, are high adaptables who married high adaptables. And so she's got 4 older siblings that all just like go with the flow and plans change and we'll go with it. And she's over here just like, but no. We said we were doing this on this day with like, no. I'm bringing this, remember? And so I'm curious if we bring it home in your family dynamic and how you slot in and how adaptability works for you. How do you move through that? Because Kevin, I hear you loud and clear, and I love it, man, that you're able to say, I bring peace. If I could summarize what you've been saying, I bring calm. I am the unflappable. Because what did you say the parents said? You were the flap in the wind? No, you're the unflappable one,
I
is what you
love
sound
that.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so is that kind of the positioning you end up kind of owning within your personal, network, your space, your family?
There's a little bit of that. I don't know what my dad's strengths were, but he and I were very different in this regard. He needed to know exactly, especially when we traveled, like where we're going, where our meals were going to be, what time. So I think in that case, at least, in my family, that example, my adaptability allows me to take a back seat without feeling like my autonomy is being squeezed out. I can go with it still. And if somebody else really needs to take the lead, I can let them.
I love that, Kevin. It's helpful to understand that adaptability I've known as one of those strengths that it doesn't need pronounced ego. It doesn't feel like it needs that, because it seems to have a contentment within that ability to flex. And it has, on some occasions in some organizations, that's almost been perceived as not assertive enough. But when you see it in its best expression, it's actually really strong at bonding teams, very strong at creating synergies, because adaptables do help. You need people who can help glue us together, who can, yeah, I have preferences, but I'm going to choose to forego them for the sake of the whole. Would you say that resonates with you?
It absolutely does. And I would say in that regard, it pairs with my empathy. Number one, okay, I kind of get where other people are coming from. So adaptability. So empathy lets me know where they are, and adaptability allows me to meet them where they are, so that, there can be more harmonious relationships.
That's cool. How about you, Jamal?
I love that. So my adaptability is both really amenable to change. So growing up in my family dynamic, I'm middle child, only boy. So there was a lot of, strong opinions about what to eat and what we want to do. And I would just have a really expansive idea of what's acceptable. So within this range, if we're getting pizza, I really don't care if it's sausage or pepperoni. Let's just pick one. If I get a choice, I'll give you my vote. But if not, and it ends up our parents saying we won't get anything, I'll just break the tie and go for it so we can make sure we get to a resolution. On the flip side of it, I think in my broader personal life, it's really interesting. My adaptability is number one, but I also have command number 7. So it doesn't go with me not being assertive enough. It's very much
what a fascinating contrast. That is a way to bury that gem. Wow,
Yeah.
what a fascinating contrast. Okay, keep going. That's fascinating.
Well, so how that shows up in the personal life, when we vacation, especially if it's just my wife and I, we will go to a city that we wanted to visit that's really cool. Like we went to Madrid, and we would just wake up and pick a direction to go and follow me. We don't know where we're going, but we know it's going to be okay and we're going to get there. And that's kind of my general ethos. Like we know we're going in a generally positive direction. Follow me. We'll get there. It's going to be okay. Destination slightly unknown, but we'll be okay. So it takes a certain kind of people to come along with that.
You're hurting my arranger right now. my arranger, when we travel, I'm the one that wants to be on the website lining up all the tours. I trust the tour guides. I know where I've accounted for safety. And my wife's like, let's just get on this train and see where it goes. And I'm like, but we don't know who's on there and where it's going. So the one time we're in London, and she's like, no, let's just get lost in London. I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. But she's got high adaptability. So we did. And we end up coming off the train at the entrance to Wembley Stadium the day of the FA Cup finals, which in the Premier League is a huge, big deal. So we get off the train, and my silly Yankee style, I'm like, you think there's any tickets? They're like, yank, this is like your Super Bowl. It sells out like months. And then someone goes, but they sell scalp tickets here. You can buy them. So my wife ends up negotiating with someone. We're on third row from the pitch watching Chelsea play Man U in there. And so I have since had to reform my position. And you adaptables, you're all right, because sometimes you get us into some places where
Got you to an FA Cup final. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm
Awesome.
like, well,
yeah.
I wouldn't have picked it.
Something new.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Both of you, thank you. This has been rich, very rich. And listeners, I hope you took some notes, because if you are a student of strengths and you share this one, you got a lot of great insights for how to build it, grow it, develop it in leadership or your role. And if you don't share it, you got a lot of ideas for how to connect with someone who does, and you can build on that. And so a lot of secrets were revealed here today. Let's go ahead and give each of you a chance just to tell everybody what you're doing, where they can find you, maybe things that you're interested in connecting with. So Jamal, you want to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us today, Brandon. So I am the CEO and executive coach for Mission Defined. We are an executive coaching practice. We work with individuals and leaders, and we really focus on folks in those periods of transformation, hence high adaptability. When you're approaching change and you're trying to figure out how to navigate that, we jump in and we support you to navigate those unknowns based on your strengths, whether it's a new team, you're merging teams, you're leading a new team. All of that is that space where we just love to step in and support and help others venture into the unknown. So you can find us missiondefined.com or jcornelius at missiondefined and reach out to us. We'd love to learn about your journey, support you as you're wandering down the path through the woods.
Awesome. Kevin?
Yeah, for me, let's see. Easiest to start, you can find me at Dr. Kevin Lowe, and that would be on Instagram, LinkedIn, and my website, DrKevinLo. And I'm a strengths coach, executive coach, anything. I guess I didn't really mention that I'm a management professor. So anything related to work is something that I can talk with people about, whether that's team dynamics, goal setting, planning, certainly management and leadership, all topics that I feel familiar with and enjoy talking about. So, yeah.
Awesome. Gentlemen, thank you. Listeners, this has been a great conversation. And if you know someone with high adaptability, someone who's really into strengths, please share the episode with them. A lot of great insights today, a lot you can build upon. And please do look at my guests. Both of them have excellent resumes. They do excellent work out in the space of strengths, and highly recommend them for their given expertise. So with that, we look forward to seeing you next time on Season 3 of Coach to Coach, Secret of the Strengths.
That's a wrap on this episode of Coach to Coach. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're a strengths coach looking to dive deeper, join the Coach Strong community. It's where coaches like you come together to share insights, support one another, and discover partnership opportunities. Be part of the conversations that are elevating our industry. Email community@34strong.com to join today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Coach to Coach. Stay strong.